Sassenach Quilts. My name's Helen and we're here today in the cloth house, and today we're going to talk about cloth or fabric from shirts, from men's dress shirts. Just have a look down here at this beautiful fabric that's in this shirt. Now, as a shirt it's a bit of a bobby dazzler, let's be honest, but as cloth it's teal. It's got white in it, it's got some grey in it, and you could probably put it with navy as well. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a double XL, and today I'm going to show you how you break it down and why I've changed from using fabric from fabric stores to using cloth from men's shirts. So, why do we do it? Well, let's have a look at the costs. I've got them written down here of why you would want to do this. Here in the UK, fabric from that you buy in a shop, and doesn't matter which one, has gone up so ridiculously that you're now spending between £15 and £18 per metre. If you buy a jelly roll, it's between £40 and £46. A charm pack is £15. A fat quarter is £4. And then the backing for an average 90 by 90 king size quilt, you would need 7.5 yards of backing, and that equals between £112 and £130 for the fabric. Why would you do that when you can get a sheet from a shop that is £15 to £25? You can get nearly 2 yards of fabric from a double XL shirt. I bought this yesterday in a charity shop here in the UK, or a thrift store as you call them in the States. It was £4. Why would you pay more? Why? So, and not only that, it prevents this from going to landfill, and cloth and jeans and sustainability from the industry that we all love fills a lot of landfill. So let's try and stop it and use this and make beautiful things from it. So that is why I have changed. Now, that's the pros. That's the pros. The cons of this is that not all quilt patterns are possible, because I will be limited with this fabric for the amount that's in this shirt. If I go to the thrift store again today, or charity shop, this shirt won't be available. So you have to use wisely and find shirts that match in a similar tone, so that you can then make or change the type of pattern that you use. And it's really good. Now, one of the great things though that I have discovered is that it's brilliant for scrappy quilts. So if you're into your scrappy quilts where you're using bits of fabric from here and bits of fabric from there, absolutely fabulous. And going back to the traditions of quilting back in the day, where they would use bits of scraps from dresses and clothes and shirts, and they would use every bit of fabric they had to make a quilt. As my grandma used to say many years ago, waste not, want not. And that is the total ethos of sustainable quilting, and it really is possible. We have some beautiful king size quilts in our family home here that are made sustainably, and I will showcase those again at a later date. So how exactly do you get the cloth that's available in a shirt from it? The first thing you're going to need is an adequate cutting mat. They come in a whole variety of sizes, they come in every budget, and the best place to get those from is Amazon or your local fabric store, or craft shop. So go there and get one to protect your work surfaces. The next thing you're going to need are tools that are fit for the purpose. You will need, definitely need a pair of scissors. You will definitely need a seam ripper or Jack the Ripper. You will definitely need a pair of snips, and then depending how brave you're feeling, you can either use a big cutting rotary cutter, or I prefer the smaller rotary cutter. All of these implements will be used at some stage in the process of cutting down the shirt. Now, if I just move these forwards out the way, this is a double XL shirt, and it comes with the collar attached, it comes with cuffs, it comes with, this one actually comes with darts in the back as well. So, but just look at the size of that piece of fabric there at the front. It's huge. It really is a big, you could get 2 10-inch squares from that. Huge. Same on the other side. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about left and right. Left has buttons, holes. If I turn it over, you'll see that there's button holes coming all the way down here. And it's not worth even trying to attempt to save this. So what I do is I cut up and cut the strip of buttonholes off. On the right, however, you can have a little bit of a treasure trove because all the buttons are sewn through a placket, and there's a line of stitch work just here, and if you take the buttons out and undo this placket, it can give you up to an extra 3.5 inches on the shirt, depending how many times they've wrapped it over. Some of the designer shirts, it can be nearly 4 inches of extra fabric that you get that's rolled up in this. So it really is worth unpicking this. It's a little bit of a faff sometimes, but it really is worth it. So what I'm going to do now is show you how and what I do and how to deconstruct a shirt. So the first thing I'm going to do, it's been washed because it's come from a charity shop. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the collar off. Making sure that I have all of my implements safely out of the way. Straighten it up. And literally just come along there and take the collar off and keep it. And the reason that we keep it, I will show you towards the end of the video. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cuff off because I will keep these together. That's that. And so where are we now? So if I open up the shirt, you can see there's a seam that comes up the side of the shirt here, and then it goes off around the sleeve. And the idea is that you cut all the seams out. So you can do this with a pair of scissors, you can sit at it with a quick unpick, a seam ripper, or you can be brave. Just make sure it's smoothed out. Go all the way up to the T-junction there. And from the armpit, you come round towards the yoke. Let it drop off the edge of the table if that's easier for you, because the weight of it will help pull it straight. And just be very careful of your fingers, this is why I like the little one. And then just go straight across the seam. Okay, so now my shirt is now in 2 parts. I have the bulk of it and I have the sleeve. So what we need to do now is open up. Oh, I've caught it there. Doesn't matter, happy accidents, these things happen. So then what I'm going to do is take my scissors and I'm going to cut up the seam. And now we have the shirt sleeve, and now you can see why it's suddenly, you think sleeves are small, they're not, they contain huge amounts of fabric. So what I'm going to do, because of the colour of this, I'm going to turn it over because it's easier to see, and I'm going to cut again using my rotary blade. This is a 25mm rotary blade by Prim, and I shall put a link in the description box below for those of you that like it, if you've not got one and want one. And you just come all the way around this big curved seam, making sure you move it if you're overstretching so that you don't cut yourself. Doesn't matter if the shirt gets a nick in it, but it does matter if you hurt yourself. And you end up with this ridiculously long string of seam. The last little bit that needs to be done for this is the button for the cuff has this placket, and we need to cut this out because it can't be used in the process of sewing. There we go. Perfect. And we now have the sleeve out of the shirt. Now, as I said, I've nicked that as I've cut it, but I'm not bothered about it because I can make it work. Now, I've put it on the cutting board on purpose because I want you all to see how wide this bit of fabric is here. Okay, this is the thin bit from the cuff and bottom of the sleeve, and you can see that that is pretty much 3 inches from, if I cut an inch off, it's 3 inches wide all the way up to there, and you could get easily two 3-inch squares from it. So don't throw this little snicky bit away, keep it, because you can get extra squares from it. And look at the amount of fabric there, it's wonderful. So we shall come back to that. That's the sleeve. So having finished the sleeve, then what do we do? Well, then we need to cut the front off. So you can see the join here. This is the yoke on the back of the shirt. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to literally just chop that off. Like that. And that's now the other half of the shirt. And then, same as before, we need to cut the C-mount. So we'll start at the top here. That one. Now, all of the shirts that I use are 100% cotton. I'm very, very particular about that because they will then all shrink at the same rate. If you mix your fibres such as polycotton and cotton, they won't necessarily shrink at the same rate, and then the stitches can pull and it can cause little tears in your quilt. So I prefer to be fastidious. Now, this is the placket with the buttonholes in, so this is coming off. So I'm just using the edge of the placket as a guide as I cut up here, keeping a steady hand, keeping my other hand well out of the way, and using the proper cutting board so that I don't damage the surface that I'm cutting on. And you can see as well from the video that I'm using the kitchen work surface because for me it's a wonderful height. It's higher than the tables in the house, so I use this. Now, this has got one of those buttons on it that they used to hold the collar down, and this needs to come out, and it's got a little bit of fabric on the back, so it's best taken off with the quick unpick, and you just slide your quick unpick through the stitches at the back and try not to get yourself with it. There we go. And a little bit of fabric as well should just pull through. There we go. And that is a beautiful piece of fabric. Okay, so how big is this? So we've got my tape measure here, so let's measure it. It's 32 inches long, 32.5 inches long, and I could quite happily get a 2.5 inch strip there that is about 30 inches long to about there for the width. So yeah, huge. Can I get 2 strips of 20 inches from it? Easily. Then as I come up the thing here, if I come round like that, I'm still easily getting 20 inches, and it comes a bit tight there. So any pattern that calls for a 2.5 inch strip that's width of fabric, I can get that from this piece easily. Just need 2 strips from it, and there'd be a lot left over. So you have to start thinking differently. What does the pattern ask for? If it's asking for a width of fabric strip, which you then cut up into the constituent parts, then, you know, Bob's your uncle. What about the other way? How big is it? Well, would you look at that? That's 12 inches. And if I come all the way up here and rolling it up, it gets a bit tight there where it's got a bit of shaping. But you could probably work that into the seam allowance actually. 12 inches. This is an extra large shirt from Burton's. And I'm coming all the way up to the armpit. Wow, look at that. That's incredible. So how long is that bit at the back then? That's 18 inches. So I could get a 12-inch square and 2 6-inch squares from that. Who'd have thought? Who would have thought? What about this top bit here? How big's that? That is, it's 11 inches from there to there. From the top end here to there is 11 inches. So in here, that's 8-inch square. I can get an 8-inch square out of that. You wouldn't have thought, would you? That's 2 4-inch squares. That's, if you use that half square triangle method that makes 16 half square triangles. Well, there's your 8-inch square right there. 16 half square triangles. It blows your mind, doesn't it? You just don't think that you could get that from this. Wow. Okay. Okay, so I've just removed the other sleeve and put that aside because you've seen that process. You don't need to see it twice. So what I'm going to do now is here's the back of the shirt, here's the other front of the shirt. I'm just going to separate those two like that. It doesn't matter if it's not perfectly straight. Really doesn't matter. We'll just pop that over there and we'll talk about that in a minute because that's, as you can see, a lot of fabric. Now, let's just get the bottom hem off. And again, there we go, perfect, superb. Now this is a side that's got the buttons on it. So, and it's also got the little button that the collar attaches down to. So what I need to do is I need to unpick some of these and then I'll show you the next process. Let me just take that button out of there really quickly. Try not to stab myself as I do it. Then I'll take a couple of these out and I'll show you what I mean by there's a seam that you can unpick. And it's always a surprise on every shirt how much extra fabric you're going to get. Now you need to take this little bit of stitching out the back as well. That's it. And if it does show a little hole at the back, don't worry, just give it as a steam iron and it will come out. It's kind of like a magic thing if there's a little hole left in the fabric from the stitch work, because the industrial process can be quite brutal and you do get this nest of overstitching behind. I'll just take one more and then I'll show you. Let's see how much fabric we're going to get, because I have a feeling it's going to be quite a lot on this one. Oops, where did that go? Down there somewhere. There we go. That's what came out in one. So, at the edge here you can see it's been folded back. So what you do is you just pull it a little bit and you get your quick unpick in there and just pull. Oh, there's lots. And you work your way down the shirt stitch by stitch. You can pull it a little bit. And I'm always very gentle when I do this, because if you rip it, you've then got a hole in the middle of the shirt and you don't want that. And you can see for this shirt it's not, I'm going to gain about 2 inches. So by gain I mean if I cut this off, I lose this bit of fabric, I lose the bit of fabric back to the seam, which is here, and I lose the bit that's folded inside. And it is a lot of fabric and it's so much bigger, and I'll show you the measurements. We did the measurements on the other one and I'll do the measurements when we get to the end of this. So what we've done is we've taken all the buttons out down the front now, and we've unpicked that extra seam that you get, and just look, what I've done is I've overlain the left front to the right front, and just look, you get all this extra fabric. Now this is not the most amount of fabric you can get. Some of the more expensive shirts have even more tucked away, but let's put a ruler to it. Well, that's 2 3/4 inches of fabric, a strip all the way down of 2 3/4. Isn't that incredible? So the total width to under the armpit now is 14 3/4. Did you hear that? 14 3/4 inches. You could easily get a 12-inch square out of this. And then if I measure this bit here, you can see from there to there, there's your 10-inch square. So you're getting 2 10-inch squares. You're getting an 8-inch square as well there. If I come that way 8 inches, you could probably squeeze 2. What's that width there? Not quite 2. You would get an 8-inch square and a 7-inch square. Mind blown yet, guys? Really? From a shirt. So let's have a look up at this end. How much wider is it up here? Look, that's a 10-inch square, so that's 10 inches to there. So if I take it from there down, it's a 10-inch square there. This is on the back one. Let's take this one off. It's a 10-inch square, 10 inches across there to the top. 10 inches down is there. That's one 10-inch square. Two 10-inch squares, 3 10-inch squares. That's 3 from a layer cake. That's 3 squares, 3 layer cake squares. Plus the 2 that you get from the front, the other front, that's 5 just from the fronts. I'm not even spoken about the sleeves and the 10-inch squares you get from that. You get a lot of fabric. This is an extra large shirt, and as you can see, it's beautiful. Now that we've taken the bits and bobs off and we just look at the fabric on its own, that doesn't look like a shirt. That just looks like a beautiful ditzy fabric. And you have to pick and choose what you find in the thrift store and charity shop. But if you just keep going back, things appear. Charity shops in the UK are different to thrift stores in the States. Charity shops here, you maybe have 4 or 5 shirts, sometimes up to 10. In the States, you have those rows and rows of shirts in thrift stores. So you guys are very lucky, and you will find beautiful shirts. Jeff Banks, you'll find Ted Baker, you'll find, if you're lucky, you'll find Brooks Taverner. I don't spend more than a £5 on a shirt. I have a thing about it. I refuse to spend more than £5 on fabric. So I am always just amazed how much fabric we get. Now let's have a quick look at the back, and I will explain what we're going to do next, and then we'll come back in the final segment of the show. So here we have the back of the shirt. Now you can see here you've got the yoke. This is double, so we'll measure this, which is its narrowest point is 5 inches. So we're going to get a lot of 5-inch squares out of that. It's 15, so you're going to get 3 5-inch squares, 6 5-inch squares, because there's front and back, it's double, and maybe a couple of 2.5s as well. The actual back of it lengthwise from here, because there's a seam across the back there, from there down to the bottom is 27.5 inches. Across the width it's just shy of 26, but look at this, guys, there's darts, and if we unpick this, this will open out. How big is that? Is that a 1/2 inch? Yes, it is. So that will open out 1 inch. This will open out 1 inch, which will make this 28 inches wide. That's a square. Huge bit of square with a bit of cutty out at the top and a scoopy bottom. But just look at the amount of fabric you're getting. It's just amazing. It's just incredible. So what we'll do is we will come back when we've deconstructed this into its constituent parts and do a showcase of all the fabric that we've got at the end. Okay, so we're nearly there. So what we're going to do next on this shirt, we're going to take the yoke off. And this is a remarkable amount of fabric that you can add to your collection from this shirt. Now this isn't quite straight, so I'm going to do it in 2 halves. Always use a ruler when you're cutting on over different widths and different thicknesses of fabric, because it can be dangerous. Right, the next thing we're going to do, having taken that off, is we're just going to whip along this seam here. Now you can spend ages unpicking this, but it's really not worth it for 1/2 centimetre of fabric. So what I'm going to do, in my estimation anyway, is just take this seam off. Decide where that line is going to be and just cut along there, making sure that you have all of the bits there, and then you get this really weird bit inside, and I've just cut out, again, just cut out the seam, and then the last 2 little bits right up to the top, like so. I'm cutting through about 4 or 5 layers of fabric here, so it's quite thick, right on the edge of the seam. There it is. What I tend to do, I have a little catalogue which I shall show you at some point. I'll do a video on my catalogue. I put the label, a snippet of the fabric and a snippet of the label into my catalogue, so I know what I've got and who made it and what it's from, so that anybody is interested where precisely this beautiful blue floral fabric came from, and know that it came from a Burton shirt, extra large, and I will be able to completely say where it was sourced from. So that's a really big bit of fabric, and if we've got, look at this down here, we've got the ruler on the thing here, so if I put this along the bottom edge here, you can see quite easily get a 5-inch square out of there. Another one, the 5-inch line is just there, so we'll get another one there and another one there, and some 2-inch squares at the end. So it's really worth doing this, and between the 2 of them I'll get 6 5-inch squares of beautiful, beautiful cotton fabric. Right, the last little bit that we're going to do is on the shirt back, and it's just taking this seam out. It's one side seam and one, and then across the bottom. Just straight away down the road like that, and it's a very curved seam, so I am actually using the stitch work to help guide the blade, keeping my fingers well away. There we go. And it doesn't matter as well, don't get too persnickety about it. It doesn't matter if you have a little lip like that. That is not worth the effort of trying to unpick or thinking, oh, it's not perfect. Don't worry about it. There we go. Perfect. So the last thing to do will be to unpick the dart here to get that last inch of fabric out, and then that's me. That's the shirt with all these beautiful bits. And I will do another video on what to do with collars and cuffs, and enjoy cutting up your first shirt and then start a collection going of the shirt fabrics. Take care. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ding the bell so that you can follow us. Bye now.